That's right, people. It's time for a special edition podcast. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about kids and Bigfoot. Got a special guest for you coming up here in just a couple of minutes. And does he have a story out of Florida you won't believe? So without the pseudoscientist Dr. Backdoor by my side, I am the Reverend Jeff Kelley. Hello, everybody, indeed, and I am your host, the Reverend Jeff. How is everyone today? I have a special edition podcast for you, kids and Bigfoot. I've got the youngest Bigfoot chaser, Bigfoot investigator, whatever you'd like to call him, that we've ever had on the show before, and his name, by chance, just happens to be my son, Mr. Sean Kelley. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, good.
Yeah, so you are living down in Florida, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're down there looking around the Ocala National Forest. Is that correct?
Yep. And it was sort of like not exactly around Juniper Springs, but near there or near that area.
Right on. Well, we'll get back into that in just a moment. Let's start out for just a little bit. Now, since you are my boy, you were kind of born into the fact that Bigfoot is real. Bigfoot is a creature that's out there. I mean, we used to sit with you in my lap and watch all the creepy stuff come across the screens and try to decide whether it was real or not. But, what do you really think in your head? Is Bigfoot a real creature out there, or are people just chasing demons?
Well, I personally think it is logical that it could be real.
And what facts for you bring it to it concluding that it's real?
Well, there's so much evidence, for one, and for two, I don't think my own father would lie to me.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's like you're kind of biased into the fact that you're right. I wouldn't lie to you that something was out there that if it wasn't. And you know that when we go on these Bigfoot investigations, I worry about my own safety. For fact, I would worry about anybody's safety out there because we're chasing monsters, of course. Now, what's your favorite Bigfoot evidence?
My favorite things is when I see a cast and it looks legit, because it's pretty hard to fake it if it looks real.
I kind of agree with you there for sure, because I'm a track guy myself. That's one of the very first things that I ever taught you, was to follow the tracks back to where the animal was. Can you find where the raccoon came from? Can you find where the deer came from? Those are important things to learn on little animals, so that when we're tracking the big ones later on, we follow the same kind of thing. But unfortunately, Bigfoot don't leave enough tracks to find where they came from or where they went. But the fake ones are so bad that the real ones stand out above themselves. And that, just like the one that's behind me over here from Washington, that's one of what they call the Grays Harbor foot casts. It's got veins in the bottom of it. It's got possible dermal ridges on it. And if it is a fake, it's faked by a foot doctor.
Yes. There is no way that could easily be faked.
Right. It would take a whole lot of work and a whole lot of money of why somebody would invest that type of thing into faking a few tracks across the road. Just don't make any sense. Unfortunately, people do fake tracks. We're learning that the London trackway that was found is looking 50-50 at this point. It was 75-25 for a while, but unfortunately it's looking 50-50. It could be fake, could be real. We're still not quite sure. That's how good the hoaxers are starting to get. Now, let's get down into your story here. You're out camping in the Ocala National Forest near one of the only freshwater spring sources of water.
Yes.
What exactly happened?
Okay, well, the first night, nothing big really happened. Second night, I had heard a story that if you knock on wood, something will knock back. And I said, I didn't believe it at first. But later on that night, I tried it just to see what would happen. Something knocked back, and that got me interested. Later that night, everybody in the camp had heard something rummaging through the camp. And when we got up, someone said, "Oh, it's a bear track." It was too long to be a bear track.
So you are out camping, you do a couple of tree knocks, telling somebody to, hey, come here. And then when they come here, you get a little weirded out because something came walking through your track. Now, I do know for a fact that there are bears in the area that you're talking about, but they're little bears. These are, they're 80-pound, 90-pound little Florida black bears. They're not gigantic, Sierra big browns.
No,
They're
nothing
not.
like that.
They're
There
little
were
guys.
there were signs around the place that said like bears have been seen, but they were not that big.
Right. I mean, to get a print that's 7 inches across in Florida for a black bear would be pretty much impossible, to be honest with you. I've never seen a black bear that big, and I've seen lots of black bears in Florida. They run across the highway out there on 46 all the time near Sanford. Now, one of the things that's unique about Florida is, unlike here in California, where we have to go out into the wilds where the cougar and the bear play to go searching for these things, the Ocala National Forest is really a strange ecosystem in amongst a bunch of cities. It's like the last refuge of whatever wild animals lived in Florida kind of hang out in this national forest, and the water sources have been dwindling. How bad is the situation with the water there now, Sean?
There are a few springs everywhere, but they're definitely not as big as they used to be, because you can see that the water level has gone down.
So there used to be sinkholes that were just lakes filled with water and fish. I'm sure most of those are drying up and going away as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, the animals aren't really having just any place to hang out anymore. They've got to be within daily distance to water. Without food, you go hungry. Without water, you die. Now, you had also told me that you guys had gone canoeing and found something interesting as well. Why don't you go ahead and tell us that story too?
So, just around that area too, we were in our canoes just going down that led into the St. John's. It was like one of the off rivers there. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right.
Yep.
And then there was a campsite that we saw across, like, on the side, but it was just in the middle of brush, and a lot of it had been torn into. And it couldn't have just been from, like, rain and stuff. You could see slash marks on one of the chairs.
So somebody had gone into the camp, and either a human or an animal. I mean, there are big cats out in that area. I've seen the Florida panther. They come through there as well. Raccoons can do a real mess to a camp, but who knows for sure? Unfortunately, you didn't get a chance to stop and investigate that, and I don't think you should have either.
No.
No, that tends to be one of those things you call in to the forest department, to the parks department, and let them go and check it out for sure. There recently was a story in the Bigfoot world that was similar to that, Sean. That's why I wanted you to bring it up. Was in Texas, and somebody had made a big deal out of where a campsite had been torn up and the fire had been thrown into the tent, and it ended up that the government had actually come to investigate that type of thing. So be smart in your investigations. Just report strange things like that. But when you're going out back into the woods now, what's your next plan?
If I do go back into that area, I probably will investigate more into, see if anybody else has seen anything like this and different things like that.
Well, that's a good start for sure. Talking to the people that actually use those areas a lot tells you a lot about what's going on. Now, some people are just clueless. They don't really know the difference between a mouse and a deer out there. So if they see something furry sitting down somewhere, they don't really pay much attention to it, which is sad. But now, do you watch any of the Bigfoot shows on television as well?
Not as much as I really used to. I used to watch Finding Bigfoot a lot, but that never really went anywhere for me. So, yeah. Kind of stop that.
Yeah. Now, have you seen the new Survivor Man Bigfoots that have been on the last couple of weeks?
No, I've heard about it. I've been wanting to, but I've had school and a lot of work to do.
Well, that's by far much more important than watching television, that's for sure. Just today, we were going to do the show earlier today at 1 o'clock, but you were out riding your bike, and that's fantastic. Get outside, get some exercise, and enjoy the sunshine, because that's what it is. Bigfooting is camping with a purpose. And as you get older, of course, you're going to be going out with your friends and going camping on your own. What do your friends think about Bigfoot?
Well, the people that were with me was with my church, and a few of them agreed with me that it couldn't have been a bear. It was too big and things like that. but nobody that I get to see too often was there with me.
So nobody really wanted to sign on board and say it was a Bigfoot either. What about kids
Yeah.
in like in your school? I mean, do you ever have conversations with that, or is it still one of those topics where you really don't want to talk about it with other people still?
It's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just that it doesn't usually come up in conversations.
Right. Most kids at your age aren't really out thinking about monster hunting and looking for the elusive Bigfoot. But sadly, that's one of the things that we need is we need a younger generation that's going to be able to take over from us old timers as we're getting broken and less active and less able to do it. We need you young guys with an open mind to go in and look at every single piece of evidence as though it could be or it couldn't be. Find the red flags where they are, and if there aren't any red flags, stand behind it until somebody proves that it is. That's the biggest thing that's out there. Your own evidence, you're better off keeping it to yourself. Putting it in your logbook, keeping your pictures off. Don't post it on the internet. Don't go chasing dreams until you've got something solid. Because what's going to happen one day is Bigfoot's going to be on a table. We'll have a specimen. He's in a box. We found bones, something. And then we'll be able to pull all of those pieces of evidence out and compare them to what we know about the Bigfoot that we have now. So the best advice I can give for kids that are starting out with Bigfoot now really is to start a logbook, start an evidence compiling, start comparing notes to where you have been and where you haven't been, where you see possible activity and where you don't. Now, Sean, what other springs have you been camping at up there in Ocala?
That was one of my first times that I've ever been camping, really, because our church had taken us and everything. So I haven't really been up there much, but that was one of my first times.
Right. Well, people have to realize too. You look like a much older man, but you are how old?
11.
11, exactly. So you're still coming of age. You're not quite a teenager. You're not quite into that woodsman type stuff yet, but you're getting there, and we're very proud that you're willing to take on an adventure like this. That's for sure. Now, I guess one of the things that I should explain to people is the area that you're actually talking about there in Juniper Springs is really dead center of the Ocala National Forest. It really is 10 miles from any sizable city in any direction you'd like to go, north, south, east, or west. And like we talked about, it is one of the only places where the springs actually still exist and flow into the headwaters of rivers. So when my last lookings and encounters in Florida were literally 3 miles down the road from Juniper Springs at Half Moon Lake. Now, Half Moon Lake is so low now, there probably wouldn't be any Bigfoot hanging around it. So a lot of investigation work's going to have to go on to find out where the water is easily gettable and where the water is not. And those are going to be the places to look. So that's really the best advice I can tell you. If you're out there and you can find water that's easily accessible, that's going to be where to look for sure.
Exactly. And right where we were staying, you could see at least 3 or 4 boilers just down where we were from.
Well, that was definitely an interesting tale to hear for sure. Sean, I want to thank you very much for being our first guest on Kids and Bigfoot, and I hope that you'll come back and see us again.
Definitely.
Folks, that'll do it for our first edition of Kids and Bigfoot. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.